Hello, everyone. How are y'all? As you all know, I am Tyler Tahasik, and today I'm going to be talking about how alcohol is tanking. I recently stopped drinking, and it kind of made me curious as to whether or not I was the only one, right? I felt alone for a little bit because of how normalized it was around me. And as I got to doing a little bit of research, it turns out that it is a whole movement of people drinking less, people stopping to drink at all. And that was a little bit refreshing. So I'm going to give you a little rundown of what I learned on this topic. So, I started in the hospitality industry at, I don't know, like the age of 16 or 17. And for those of you who've been doing it for a while, you know that that industry, our industry, comes with some questionable choices as to how to relieve stress, right? Now, with that being said, it's not the case for everybody, but it was definitely the case of me, right? Years later, fast forward, right? I came to realize that my that it was starting to affect my mental, physical, and my professional well-being, right? I noticed that I wasn't remembering as much. I noticed that I was gaining weight and that I was always sluggish. And I also noticed that I wasn't able to perform 100% while I was at work, right? So here's a few surprising statistics on the drop in numbers in regards to alcohol. This article was written at the beginning of this year, I believe, and these studies were taken over the course of a few years. But roughly, we are starting to see a 23% drop in premium spirits, nearly 3% drop in beer, and over 4% drop in wine sales. And it's not just trends like dry January or sober October. It's larger. It's a nationwide lifestyle change, right? So, like I said earlier, people are really starting to cut back immensely. And part of this is due to inflation, of course, right? People don't have the money that they once had to spend on alcohol, right? And that might help them cut back a little bit and then eventually stop drinking altogether. And also increased health awareness. I have noticed, and as the article said, that our younger generations are starting to worry and pay closer attention to their health and their well-being, right? And they are noticing that alcohol isn't a positive effect on those certain lifestyles that they're trying to achieve, right? And then there's also the shifts in lifestyles. People are starting to notice that, right? So they are spending their money elsewhere and maybe in helping themselves in self-awareness and there's also like the Ozempic craze that we are going through right now, and that tends to curve people's appetites, and that includes drinking. Right there, people are nauseous; they don't want to drink or they don't want to eat, and then the way that this ties into our industry is that this is something that we need to keep an eye on. It's important to hospitality professionals for us to respond in an appropriate manner when it comes to changing consumer habits. Now, non-alcoholic options, they're often treated as an afterthought in our industry, right? When do you go to a restaurant and the very first thing that pops into your head is, "Ooh, where's the mocktail menu?" No, you don't see those table tents on tables. You see table tents advertising beer and wine specials and maybe specialty drinks. Now, other common alternatives to alcohol, they're usually limited, right? I mean, even in our project, we were only required to have one mocktail. And other than the mocktails and maybe a specialty lemonade, all you really have is soda and tea, right? Your basic stuff. I feel like there is a need for maybe a zero proof menu to where there's a little bit more of creativity and depth in those mocktails and maybe just a little bit more of a concentration point, because you always want to cater to your market and you want to know what they're looking for, right? And what these studies are showing us is that alcohol sales are dropping. So what are you going to do to make up for those alcohol sales? Now, alcohol has always been treated as a traditional role when it comes to celebrations and social life, right? I mean, you go to your cousin's birthday party, right? And they got $8 pitchers of Peter Piper. You go to Easter, everybody's drinking beer. And this is just something that I grew up around, right? There was always an excuse to drink, but you have mocktail bars at weddings that might be able to replace that and also cater to the children a little bit more, right? You can do spirit-free toasts. There's lounges that focus on wellness, like music, games, and community. That's something that you could open up in a non-alcoholic manner. But just because these sales are starting to decrease, that doesn't mean that they're just disappearing, right? So I would definitely recommend keeping some alcoholic aspect to the business. But so like also our training, right? So a lot of bartenders are trained to mix with spirits. What if we did like a dual specialty when it comes to training our bartenders, both in alcoholic drinks and in non-alcoholic drinks? And maybe we could try to shift focus from intoxication to experience and connection. Now, a large portion of alcoholic sales are in your younger generation, right? Usually 21 to 27 is when you see the highest number of units purchased, I would say. And a lot of that is like people are planning to overdrink on nights. What if we were able to change that mentality to where it went from an intoxication experience to just a connection experience, to where we could build relationships with other people? Now, if let's just say somebody was to make this shift, right? Would it be permanent? I wouldn't say so, because a market is never permanent per se. Things are always changing, right? And you need to learn how to adapt. So right now, I see alcohol sales going down. So I'm going to figure out how to cater to this new clientele that we are witnessing before our eyes. And we also need to do our research. We need to do our studies, right? We need to make sure that we need to make sure that these are actually correct numbers before we make these changes in our menu, with our price points, and in our training, right? We don't want to waste our money. We certainly don't want to waste our time. And there's always an emphasis, not just with this particular aspect per se, but you always want to learn how to be proactive instead of reactive, right? So you need to get a head start on your competition. What are the new trends going on around me? This is one of them. How am I going, just like I said earlier, how am I going to replace this decline in alcohol sales with something that can thrive? And I don't want to do that after the fact. I want to get a head start on it, so that way I'm not behind, not just with the trends, but also with my competition. And I mean, have y'all seen any change in your own lives, either with yourself or with your friends, or maybe you're in a social setting and you're seeing less people drinking? Have y'all seen anything like that? And do you think that our industry is ready to evolve, right? Do you think that we're able to adapt to something so slanted that's completely different than what we have known? How do you think that we are going to do that as well? And how can we take part in shaping what comes next? Are we going to stay proactive, or are we going to be reactive? Are we going to help shape what comes next, right? Are we going to form into the shape that's already been built? So that is my take on alcohol in the tank. Please let me know if y'all have any questions. Thanks, guys.